Well, hello, ladies and gents.
Greetings.
We are getting started. It's going to be very exciting. I'm actually going to quickly email Erica Drayton and tell her that we are editing her stuff because she sent over some awesome stuff. And looking forward to reading it. She has a Patreon and a lot of things you should, and she's on Twitch. A lot of things you should click on and support her with, and pay her all your money because she's a great writer, and I'm looking forward to. This is an early draft, so obviously this isn't final draft by any means. From what she's communicated to me, so get excited. Hopefully we'll be able to help make this as awesome as possible when it gets to the final draft. And just remember, every writer, myself included, no matter how awesome their stuff is, goes through an editing process. So even though we might bring some notes to bear on her awesome work, who doesn't have notes for their work? All right, Riven, a Stonehaven Fable. Yeah. And this is a short story set in her Stonehaven universe. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in double because it's one thing that is that's harder on Final Boss than inconsistent line spacing. You know what I'm saying, guys? All right, that's a suggestion. I'm just gonna accept that. Okay. Nestled down a road paved with tiny cobblestones, live a family of one way. So there's a lot. So like the image you're trying to deliver, and I think the reason I'm kind of zooming out on this line particularly is because it's the first line. It's the most important line. A road paved with tiny cobblestones is a more complicated construction of a cobblestone road, right? And those types of things, while sounding very minor, are part of the thing that really makes a piece of prose snap, is getting your imagery in a compact construction. So nestled down is kind of a funny construction too, but I'm not going to dive into that. So nestled, maybe at the end.
Yes. Lived. Should it be past tense?
Yeah. This family lived, yeah, because the next one's lived. Lived a family of one boy, one girl, a husband and wife, and the boy's rabbits.
I feel like that could be a little smoother somehow too.
Yeah. I would also, I think I agree. I think this, why not expand this? Why not expand this? I like the list, but with so many articles, it feels clunky. I think that's the thing. I think if it was like just like, a boy and his rabbit, a boy, his mother, and their rabbit, that would be one thing, but because novelist, how's it going? Welcome.
I know, we're editing. Is that a shocked face?
That is a shocked face. Or it's, what is it? It's PogChamp.
I don't know what that means.
It's just excitement. Good to see you, novelist.
7 have been revised.
Well, don't worry. We get less nitpicky. There's a free edit. We want it to still be entertaining for everybody that's on stream. So we get less nitpicky and more abstract as we go along usually. But remember, the first lines of your story, the construction really does matter. This family lived well. Rather well. I know that's a modifier, which is a adverb, which you generally want to avoid, but you're using it for voice. But I know you're using this for voice, but I still think it should be cut. This family lived well. I think you don't need to tell me. I think you can just show me. They had a large, their home was a large 2-story construction,
They lived in a large 2-story home.
Yeah.
Overlooking a cliff.
Yeah, I think that's better than what I was gonna say.
drop that would kill any man, woman, child, or rabbit that should fall
I
on
like
top of it. I like that.
I like that's a good risk. I think the yeah, so remember, I think this is one temptation that I definitely have as a writer is to pack all the data I think I need the reader to have into the first line. And, like stuff like, hey, they're wealthy, they're blah. And, you don't, I think, have to go too deep into it. I think, just mentioning they have a nice two-story home is one thing. And then later on, you can pepper in more like, the father always drank a very expensive bottle of wine or a bottle of the finest Chianti, Walmart carried. I don't think this is a Walmart world.
Especially tempting in like fairy tale-ish kind of fable-y tales because there's like an aspect of simplicity to just explaining what's going on. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it's needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like this. This is a really great setup. Love this. I think this is a really good sense of
foreshadowing.
Good foreshadowing. Makes me be like, okay, well, who's jumping off it? Luckily, no one in the family has met their demise in this way, as going to the edge, or even just as going
near the edge, even just to sit on
one. This might just need another look. Looks like typo. Mayak. How's it going? Great to see you. Oh, of course, now you get on. I know. Right before your bedtime of all times. Is it right before your bedtime? It's not that late. It's 12:30. Wow, it is that late.
Yeah.
My shower took longer than I thought. How's it going? We'll probably go a little faster through these. Instead of walking down the road homeward bound was the boy carrying his rabbit who had been missing for several days. He found his best friend drowned in a pool of rainwater.
Right, instead, walking down the road homeward bound was the boy carrying his rabbit. Okay, that's a little bit like multiple things.
But instead of what? Instead of sitting by the edge?
Off going near the edge?
Yeah.
Instead, walking down the road homeward bound was the boy. There's something clunky there.
Yeah, I think you just want to cut this.
I think maybe just flip it around.
Yeah.
One day the boy was walking home down the road carrying his rabbit.
Yeah, I think you're doing like a lot of very...
There's a lot going on in each sentence.
Yeah, very long, complicated sentences with non-traditional constructions. And I think one thing that might benefit you a lot is to remember the principle as you revise is just to keep focusing on the cause and effect, having really tight cause and effect logic in sentences, because that's really how your reader absorbs it. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. So, like the boy, okay, so he found his best friend drowned in the rainwater. So, like, to some degree...
He had found his best friend?
Yeah.
I think that's the rabbit. Okay.
His best friend in rainwater from the night before. They've been suffering from heavy rainfall. So, again, like, it's not the end of the world in each individual instance you break cause and effect. But again, this is exactly that, right? So we have the effect here, and then the cause here. And that works, in this particular case, a little bit. But obviously, the more it happens, the more it leaves your reader lost, because they're given an image, and they have to search for the reason that image happened. So, this inversion of cause and effect is okay here, but it's been happening enough in the first few paragraphs to indicate this, respecting, focusing on clear cause effect relationships might help.
And I think don't be afraid to break things up into multiple sentences.
Yeah.
Like you can say, one day the boy was walking down the road heading home. he had his best rabbit friend in his hand and was overjoyed since his friend had been missing for several days.
They've been suffering from heavy rainfall, and Ribbon, the boy, was given specific instructions. See, again, another... Like, there's so many parentheticals, there's so many commas, there's so much... But his rabbit, unable to understand... There's almost a parenthetical in every single sentence in this... You know, walking on the road, homeward bound, parenthetical, was the boy carrying his rabbit, was the boy carrying his rabbit, which is a dependent clause later. So there's so many modifiers getting tacked. You're not focusing on the base clause of the sentence. What is the what's the subject and the verb? We need to really drill down on the base clause.
I think just breaking up the sentences.
Simplifying. Unable to understand human language, disobeyed. There are a lot of...
I think one in a sentence is okay here and there. Like, I think that one would work if it was like, but his rabbit, unable to understand the human language, had disobeyed. Period. During a mild moment filled with thunder and lightning the night before, it had hopped out the window of River's room and landed on a bed of roses. I don't know. I think, considering it's every sentence, it does get to be a little... It kind of takes us out of the story to have to catch up on the kind of parentheticals.
Yeah, and I get the sense you're shooting for this, universal narrator vibe. And one of the things you find in a lot of fairy tale narrators is they do postulate and they do break logic to give parentheticals, and they do a lot of these things, but usually that's happening later down the road and after the story is really kicked off. They're still kind of in this kind of middle area on the first page of like, okay, there's a kid, his rabbit died. What does that mean? We kind of need to get to like, why is this important? Yes, it's his best friend, but we want to get a sense of the consequence pretty early on. And the more of this trimming you can do, the quicker we'll get there. There are a lot of parentheticals. There are ones in every sentence. Also, you had a really great note.
Me? Breaking up the...
Yeah, break into smaller sentences so we can have clear and precise base clauses.
Simplify.
Yep.
Even just as an exercise, you could just see how, because it is good to have some sentences that aren't just, to not have all super short sentences, but just as an exercise for you, it could be, okay, how can I break each sentence into as many small sentences as possible?
I think that's a great idea. Just to try for one paragraph. Say, okay, how can I reduce this to the smallest common denominator?
Each sentence has right now like 3 different sentences inside it. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be a good exercise to see. You don't, some you can combine, but just to see.
Ribbon had to wait until the next morning when the rain finally ceased again. That's a mid-branching. That's like a dependent clause, right? So again, we're getting a lot of mid-branching sentences, which means the subject is over here. You have an independent clause stuck between the subject and the verb, and the verb happens. Oh, wait, well, sort of. This is actually like a right branching, but yeah, anyways. Ribbon had to wait till the next morning when the rain finally ceased to go. Actually, there it is. Yeah, it is a mid-branching because there's your other, to go out in search of his rabbit. But by then it was too late. So again, there's so much... when the rain, and this is also breaking cause and effect, right? Because, this is telling the cause, again, after the effect, in the middle of the effect. Again, breaking cause and effect for a mid-branching sentence.
Yeah, because technically cause and effect would be when the rain had finally ceased, Ribbon went to go out in search of his rabbit, but by then it was too late.
No, I don't think Hemingway rolling it. I don't think that's the case, man. I think this is a really well set up story. I think a lot of this is just, different styles, and I think some of it is. One thing I think is I don't know if I'm correct, but I think Erica maybe trying a fairy tale format and learning that narrator's voice, and I think I've written. You guys can probably go to my old stream archives and read. I wrote like a 30,000 word fairy tale that was not right. It didn't work and it failed. And I recently wrote another one, and I'm, probably, if I took a look at it, I'd probably still need a lot of revision. I was still pretty happy with that one. But, fairy tale, I think a lot of writers are tempted to go in and say, hey, having this fairy tale voice is a very manageable, simple thing to do. But I think it's a much, much more advanced genre than people give it credit for. It's extremely difficult. There are so many rules, especially if you're going to try to draw on the enormous history of fairy tales. I used to study fairy tales because I think they're one of the most fascinating literary types there are. But yeah, so like, yeah, don't take this as me knocking anybody's writing style or saying, oh, Hemingway would say this or that, because I think this is a writer taking on a very aggressive challenge, which is this fairy tale voice, which I think is quite difficult.
Everybody's at different places of just learning to write.
Yeah. Again, cause and effect for a mid-branching, breaking cause and effect for a mid-branching sentence. And mid-branching sentences should be used sparingly. They're powerful if you save up for them. They can really suspend the reader and like have this great sentence level suspense. But they do come at a cost. There's this really great style guide. I'm going to type it in here. Fail to send message. Are you connected to the account you're trying to send? Probably not. Is my internet down? Does everything hate me? Probably. Why does it hate me? Let me try. There it is. One of them went through. Okay, so I'll just do it on that. Okay. But yes, we always want to be encouraging to the writer. Because it's a scary, scary, scary thing to share your work out, especially in early draft. This is a first draft, so like we were kind of saying earlier, first drafts. If you read my first drafts, you'd probably find a lot of the same things. The rabbit was long gone. The road now walked upon was also washed out. One of the setbacks of their current home, and Riven was kept within a few yards from his home. Okay, but Riven, I'm going to try to accelerate beyond the sentence stuff and try to get to some of the story level issues or questions that we might come up with. But Riven was not discouraged or terribly saddened by the loss as most boys at his young age would be. I thought it was his best friend. Why is this? I thought.
I think in the next sentence it says.
Oh, he was excited about bringing his friend back from the dead. Ooh, is it Pet Cemetery? Yikes. Up until the moment, he'd been practicing on small insects and bugs unsuccessfully, but he loved his rabbit more than he loved those bugs, and felt deep in his heart that this time the plan would work. It had to. All right, this is a good motive. I like this motive, and some of the foreshadowing he developed earlier gives this, a sense of dread. Though I would wonder if we can get, some of, Riven's thoughts on Necro. Does he see it as a good art, as something he needs to hide from Mom and Dad? So I think this is like the really tricky thing of world building is slipping in morality whenever you have world building elements. Because necromancy, what if it's encouraged in this world? What if it's normal and it's great? I don't know that because I haven't read all of the other Fable books. So developing and it could also, for different cultures in this world, could mean different things. Like maybe it's like the Grisha in Six of Crows, where for one culture it's kind of this this economic power, like you hire them and they do work and you use them as an economic tool. For other cultures there are these warriors, or for other cultures there are these monsters. So like every culture, which I thought was really well done in Six of Crows, had a different view of what the Grisha were and how. So like those types of things about your magic system are really worth asking. So for an example, that would be instead he was excited about bringing his friend back from the dead. Up to this moment, in practicing, on bugs. you know, where mom and dad. And, you can use some of his voice. Like, the narrator might say where his mother and father, But remember, you can say mom and dad and kind of zoom in as a third-person narrator into the character's interiority using free and direct discourse. So I'll put a little note there and say, oh, yeah, mom and dad is using the, kid's voice. Remember, your narrator can slip in and out of the characters' voices with free and direct discourse. There we go. Boop. All right. I can still type. And the thunder and lightning. Okay. And the thunder and lightning and the command? What is that? What does that mean?
Because he'd been told by his parents to stay inside because of the rain at the beginning.
Oh.
So I guess another storm has come. So
I'll show them I'm not a child like Papa says. I think we kind of get... I like that, but I think we kind of get, that's a parental kind of voice. Riven torched through the mud by the torrential rains in the previous days. Soon the lightning started, small fires, and it kept everyone, adults too, inside. But Riven needed...
Oh, that must be a typo.
Yeah, okay. I was like, my brain is confoodled. Riven knew.
Seems like.
This was a chance to test out a theory that he had read in the notes and found once during his adventures in the house. And so is his house a place where there are adventures?
Yeah.
I thought it was a normal house. So is there something unique?
It's like an old house that they moved into.
Are these imaginary? And you want to give some indication, and I guess you kind of elaborate on them right after. But the, 2-story house didn't seem that...
Yeah, I was picturing like a suburban, boring house. This one sounds like a cool, like, old house that's built hundreds of years ago with hidden rooms.
And I think that is something well worth establishing in the beginning, because we can say, it's a nice fancy house, and then those types of details can give us a sense of the wealth of the family, of the status of the family.
And also set up, so when you say that he has adventures in the house, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then, there are many closets and hallways that twisted around and went down and up and popped up in the forest miles away. That is the type of things...
I want this.
So, and that's the power of details, I think, because if you just tell me they're wealthy and it's a magical house, I won't know. For me, a magical house might be those secret passageways. For Danielle, a magical house might entail,
wishing room.
A wishing room. So exactly. So that's why that specificity is so critical, I think, and why showing, telling, especially around like the family status. Like where I think that one of the most important places to show and not tell, and there are definitely places to do telling, and I think there is there are certain things we just kind of like, okay, this is what it is, let's move on. But it's usually around where this family sits in society, because a lot of people aren't really super aware of it, and you don't think about your place in society that often usually. So it's not something that's going to come up in interiority. It's not something that's going to come up really organically. Like you don't say, oh, I'm really wealthy, go me. But that is something where you can do a lot of rich detailing and can really expand, the world and make it so much even more vivid. And this is already really well evoked. So it can become even more vivid, I think. In one of those rooms were papers that contained hidden instructions on how to cast spells. Some of them didn't interest him, but there was one that spoke, oh wow, so this is really a magical house. There are many avenues, and taking some more effective than others, depending on what exactly was being brought back to life. Riven knew that for his rabbit, he would need more than what he used in the past on his bugs. He would need to harness the energy from the lightning, and who knew when this energy would be close to him. His father had mentioned that the storm was soon pass over them, bringing back the sun. Nellie, Riven's, or Nella?
No.
Nell, Riven's older sister, never had time for her brother. He played with dead insects and animals, trying to bring them back with spells, while she would rather read her books. Again, so this is it felt like we were, in a close third person with, mainly Riven. So without some sort of space or marker, this jump feels a bit abrupt. POV shifts should always be,
Is it a
really.
POV shift?
Well, it is, right? Because, because we're going. The thing that makes it a POV shift, and this is my grad school at work. No, I'm just being facetious. But the thing that makes it a POV shift is we get into her thoughts. A third person, and we're kind of telling it from an omniscient perspective, but initially we didn't omniscient third. You usually have to be really, man. It's like a freaking bazooka. It does a lot of it has a lot of horsepower, but if you're not pointing it in the exact right place, something is gonna usually go wrong, or it's gonna be funky, So I think one of the problems is
it is getting. I thought it was gonna go back
because we're zooming right into her brain and her thoughts and her interior thoughts and her perceptions of her brother and her opinions. So I think that's where you probably at least, and it's okay. Like, I think in short stories though, man, having at least a separator and saying, hey, like, we're in a different character's point of view now, is a very useful device to kind of 667, how's it going? And
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
But yeah, I would also wonder, like, every time, and maybe my opinion will change as we continue through the story, but every time I kind of read a omniscient point of view, I usually find myself wondering if we needed all to go into that person's point of view fully, because it is a big pull. Like, we've been tracking with this character for a long time. We've been getting to know Riven, and then suddenly we're yanked out, and then we're shoved into someone else's head, and that's always a big adjustment. And you really want to make sure that there is going to be a very useful payoff that is not just getting someone else's thoughts on your main character or getting someone else's view on the same story. There has to be another plot that's developing with her. There has to be a whole other plot developing with her that's going to clash in some ways, I usually think. I mean, obviously there's exceptions to every rule, but stories of pirates and Bill, okay, blah 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 blah. She loved books, great. Sounds like my kind of homie. Pirates and villains that her father brought home. So when her father declared that no one was to leave the house, she was thrilled most of their days. Her mother made her put her book down and go outside. Boo. Enjoyed nature and spent time with her brother. But rainy days were hers to do whatever she wanted. I like this girl. I like this character already. Oh God, you again.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo.
Then it sounds like it goes back to Riven.
And through, so going down tucked away, and his father neighbors put out fires. Riven snuck outside. Okay, so now we're in this like neutral point of view. Again, one of the challenges with omniscience is this like really blurred point of view. One book, if you do want to do omniscience, and if you say, Jeff, I appreciate your notes, but I'm sticking with an omniscient narrator. One book that might be worth reading is Miss Dalloway by Victoria Woolf, and just studying how she goes between characters. And I think that was like one of the biggest things that taught me that I was like, I can't get to this level. This is how someone does it in a really polished fashion. I'm just gonna avoid it. But that was my own choice because I kind of know where. At least I'm like kind of like I don't know. I'm a simple. My brain doesn't work very well, so I have to kind of keep it simple for me. But if you say, hey, I really want to do omniscience, read Miss Dalloway, see how she's moving between characters, she's doing a lot of techniques. She's jumping from a character. So there's usually a transition. There's usually a reason why we're going to someone else's head. She's using scene. There's usually a continuity layer. I know, a lot of things.
Sorry, I'm zoning out. Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, sorry. No. You can definitely zone out because this is me rambling. But like, there's usually something that's continuous. So even though the point of view is changing, there's some continuous thing that's happening, right? So here, that's not, right? So we jumped the whole scene change. We're jumping over here, not in the same scene. So like in Miss Dalloway, for example, Claire will look at we'll look over at the shopkeeper, and then we'll be in the shopkeeper's head, and she'll look, and it's all about this big moment, this big fanfare moment. And so there is a very tight focus around not a character, but around a world moment, around a scene. And that's how you work. You say, okay, if we're not going to focus on a character, we have to have some other device that is going to be the focal point, and the characters will revolve around it. And that's very much her moment, which is like, Dalloway is one with this moment, and she like zooms around. It's very well done. But again, far beyond my skill level. But those are some of the things you might pick up when you read Miss Dalloway's. Okay, she's using a scene as an anchor as she's because we're not in the same scene anymore. We don't really have an anchor as we're point of view shifting between these characters, which makes it really jarring on this read.
Jarring to the reader.
Jarring to the reader. I'm using that again, even though
Drink.
You make fun of me.
Everyone drink.
Everyone drink whenever I say jarring, and you're just going to be drunk tonight because I've decided that I am going to embrace that saying because it's a thing. The second thing is there's usually an indication of where we're going. Like, she looks at the cashier, and then we're in the cashier's head. And she also zooms from the head out into the scene and then back into the new character's head. So, like, there is a transition in the prose. So those are kind of three things. Maybe I'll write a blog post about it. But those are three things to really, really, really think about, and why you should read a lot of Omniscient Point of View, and then read stuff like Agatha Christie if you're looking to have a very present narrator. So another thing that you're doing is you have a very present narrator, a narrator who is voiced, who is talking and has their own kind of tones and ways of saying things. So Agatha Christie is another great resource for that. We're on the Orient Express. Sorry.
Cool.
Large tree was planted near the edge. Oh, yeah, sorry. A raven snuck outside. He pulled his cape, a gift from his mother that was much too long. Making it step labor, he tugged at it towards the cliff. Large tree was planted near the edge
Walking towards the cliff.
Man. He's being dangerous. Large tree was planted near the edge long before he was born, and Raven believed this would be the best place to attract lightning. He'd been unsuccessful in reviving anything larger than insects. I thought he was not successful in even reviving insects.
Yeah.
I thought he'd even
not been successful.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings is a good one. Great Omniscient. If I remember correctly, though, he is a close third person with multiple point of views. Omniscient, and let me know if you can disagree with me if you want, but I've usually thought about Omniscient being categorized as the same chapter, the same beat, the same scene, having multiple point of views simultaneously. And I could be wrong about Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings is usually like, he does jump heads a little bit sometimes. In Hobbit, he will sometimes zoom out as a narrator. I could be wrong. But I think like when he's in a chapter, he's in Sam's point of view for the entire chapter, and he doesn't leave Sam's point of view. Then he goes into Frodo's point of view, and he doesn't leave Frodo's point of view. It's definitely Omniscient. Okay, then maybe I should just reread it. But then maybe that's a great example. I could be wrong. I always thought that he was pretty.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I just don't remember. Yeah. Man, maybe that's what I'll reread. Yay! I was looking for a new book. You inspired me, 667. Cockroaches don't count. Where my second person writer's at, I love second person. That means it is probably a choose your adventure, which makes me happy. Yeah, you can read some David Foster Wallace. We have one of his stories posted in the Discord. So go to the Discord, the Boss Library. There's that David Foster Wallace short story. Read it. It's a great example of a very precisely executed second person. Great story. Actually, I just think it's a fantastic story. Coming of age story. One of Fox's favorites. A dead rabbit he held in his hand slipped in the mound. Damn this cape. He reached back and tugged at it. Half it was completely coated.
How old is this kid? I was picturing like an 8-year-old.
Yeah, this feels like a different voice, doesn't it? Because like even in his earlier dialogue, he's like, "I don't listen to Daddy," and then he's like, "Curse this cape." You know, this feels like that's a really good catch. I didn't even notice that. Like a different voice than we got from the care earlier. See, this is the thing. Like, I'm the OCD narrator who generally zooms in on like the micro level, and then the Foxy lady is, of course, like catching these bigger issues that are actually like issues that one should watch out about more. He knew it would be impossible to wear it and carry his rabbit and untie the cape. He hated to leave it behind, but soon his mother or sister would see him from one of the windows in the house and put a stop to his plans. He needed to move quickly. The sky lit up. Do we need briefly? Nah. We kind of imply it's briefly when we get this flash. Signaling a flash of lightning was incoming. Do we need that complexity? The sky lit up. Maybe we just do a flash of lightning. You know, and just do like a M dash. A flash of lightning. Boom. Oh, I guess he's expecting it to come. He picked up his... I think it doesn't matter. A flash of lightning. He picked up his rabbit and tried to wipe it clean. The more he rubbed, the worse he made it. Instead, he ran towards a tall tree that loomed in the darkness and barely illuminated.
Wiping it clean? Oh, God.
Yeah. The 5th season, Broken Earth trilogy. Are those good? I have not read them.
I read those.
Did you read it? How was the 5th season?
The first one was really good.
Should I read it?
The second and third...
Not so good.
Left something to be... Yeah, I think the story fell apart a little bit.
That should probably be a disclaimer for every time I
to notice.
What happened?
Fantasy trilogy in second person. Oh yeah, there is one character who's in second person in the 5th season. Which is something that's a little jarring at times. You get used to it, but...
There's another book that does that. It's like a modern drama. It wasn't that good.
The first book of that was pretty good.
Should I just read the first one?
You can.
Or will it just frustrate me that the whole series doesn't tie up well?
The characters in it, they don't act logically. They're very like... They're not good people. Like, no one's a good person in that book. No one. So, I mean, it like... If that doesn't bother you...
I'm just going to read Lord of the Rings. Doesn't sound like...
Why? Okay, why would you want to just... Yeah.
There's nothing that makes me drop a book faster than a character doing a bad thing without a really well set up motivation. Yeah. Welcome Daenerys to the party of bad fiction. Anyways, Nellie slammed her book shut, satisfied beyond words with the ending of the story. She looked out her window and couldn't believe how much time has passed. When she started reading the sun, it was still in the sky. So we're back to Nellie, man. Oof. Never harness that before.
At least like at least a break.
Yeah, I think we definitely need a break. We're not getting clean transitions here between when she looked out. Her brother Riven was standing in the tree. What does he think she's doing? She said to herself. She wanted to fling open her window. I think we don't need this. She wanted to fling open the window and shout him out because this is verbal doubling because we're getting the same beat of her incredulity twice, right? And I think this is a stronger because whenever a character's talking to themselves aloud, it's a little jarring to the reader. Drink. What the fuck? Cleaning fluid? You trying to kill me, woman? We're getting... And that's good. This is the first draft, so just trim the weaker of the two when you see this. This is the first draft, right? So, we don't have to be, oh, man, it's not perfect. It's the whole idea. It's a first draft. Bare feet in the sun, ran downstairs. Magneta...
In the sun?
Busied herself. Who's Magneta?
Magenta?
Magenta.
Who's X-Men business?
Magneto.
X-Men crossover.
What's X-Men doing around here? Okay, so then this would probably be another point of view segment. Again, I would question the necessity for 3 point of views in this short story. That's a lot for a short story, 3 point of view characters. It's done before, people have done it before, but it is not easy to pull off. So just make sure, like, okay, can we stay in 1 point of view? Can we slow down? You know, he's up to reviving his rabbit. Why don't we get introduced to the sister when he's at home trying to revive a bug? You know, and then she's yelling at him, and we get to know her, and you know, so those are some options, right? Some options, because, but I think you would need to have some sort of paragraphal separation between, you know, some sort of like bigger separator.
Also an introduction on who Magenta is.
Yeah, like
just
who
be
dis?
like, Ribbon's mother, Magenta, busied herself in the kitchen.
Yeah. Also, who dis? You know, even if this is a short story in a bigger world, we need a little, you know, intro, or, you know, even just some detailings, you know, on what she's wearing, doing. You know, for example, like, you know, visit herself in the kitchen, mixing together a potion to rid herself of a headache she'd been nursing ever since the rain started. You know, that's like very, that feels like it's a concrete description, but it's actually not. Remember when we're jumping into a new point of view, you know, like a more concrete description could be like Magneto tugged up her sleeves and lifted the jar of acetaminophen, you know, whatever. She's judging me because it sounds like a pharmacy word, but it's not. It's make-believe. It's a make-believe word, people. I can make up names too, pharmacy lady, okay?
You sure can.
Rude. I feel so...
Speaking of, I will officially be Dr. Fox Stoka on Sunday.
You just told our last names to the entire internet. Now we're going to be murdered.
Dr. Fox, that's me.
Yeah. A lot of Dr. Foxes out there. Anyways, delete last 10 seconds. I'm just kidding. Give me your hand. Just kidding.
I feel like everybody knows.
I think everyone's figured it out by now. Yeah, I think everyone's figured it out. But everybody who cares, at least.
Yeah. They probably don't.
But yeah. But like, you know, she tugged up her sleeves and took the bottle of, you know, linseed oil off the cabinet and added it among the bubbling, you know, black tar of ragweed and smildefiff, and you know,
that's a thing.
That's a more concrete description. What does busying herself in the kitchen mean? I want to see this. You know, this is, you know, is not enough of a concrete description, especially for a care intro. You know, she tugged up her sleeves and grabbed and poured the vial.
What up, 667? More the howl. Oh yeah, Jeff was saying that. What this?
Acetaminophen and chlorophyll put together. Yeah, that's true. That was exactly what that was, I think.
What's more the howl?
Oh, it's a game that he's been trying to pitch you on.
What this? Explain.
Explain.
Give summary.
So, weed? Yeah. Everyone, you know, pull a ticket, make fun of my terrible making up name ability. That's totally fine. I deserve it. I don't do second person, but I like writing from a hypothetical second, from either a third or first point of view. Yep, I've read a lot of stuff in a hypothetical second. There was this. Oh God, what was that book about?
It's a hypothetical second. If you were to blah blah blah.
No, or it's like there's one in. Oh God, what was that book called? That really annoying one about Psycho. Book based on Psycho. I have it. It's from my grad school, but it's pretty much like there's like this one girl like, every time you see her, like she's describing from her perspective, but like you just can't stand her. When you walk to the store, you notice her with George. You just like it's like kind of like her telling her perspective, like as if she's like confidentially talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's like kind of a hypothetical second.
Got it. Cool.
And it's actually like a representative of a discrete character, though. Okay, he left
I
alone.
might have to go to bed after this.
Yes,
I
it
wake
is
up and move
one.
my car.
Your Valley Girl needs some work, Bossy. That's true. Maybe we'll just do the end of this page, I think, and then we'll do a quick few kind of bigger level notes.
Yeah.
And then I was just gonna go. I'm not gonna stay up too late. I wanted to do Husky Remedy, send some stuff in for he restarted rewriting his fan fiction.
Nice.
I'm not gonna go through all of it, but I was just gonna do a couple of pages. So yeah, I'll do that on my own after you're doing your thing. She heard the door bang open and shouted at her husband. He had left long ago to help a neighbor whose shed had sparked a fire from lightning. She was not expecting him home so soon, as he was being so helpful to everyone and only accepting the odd vegetable as payment. This is her husband. But they're so wealthy. But how did they get wealthy if he's not getting paid?
Well, I think that's just from helping neighbors.
Or is this just charity? Charity. So it's probably just me that was kind of thrown by that. Still, she hurried and put away her potions just in case he could come bursting into the kitchen, but no one came.
So she's hiding it. Okay.
So I like that. This is great. This is a great signaling of something going wrong. Great signaling showing, this is you need to flick your wrists more, and that's true. Straw man is the best second person. Yeah. Is the dog's man's best friend? No, it's the straw man. Miak is awesome. I love the cast. The color wheel too. It's a cool idea.
Oh, it's his page he's looking at.
I
think. I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
Well, you didn't share it with all of us, Miak? I'm just kidding. Well, share with everyone, and maybe we'll all look at it together. But no one came. Okay, except for the front door was open. She knew it was like that. Only Riven at home. She ran to the doorway. All right, I'm just gonna do a quick scan. A rabbit covered in mud hopped away, leaving Riven for dead. Okay. So what? She could not reach her brother in time. Okay.
So he's standing under the tree.
So then she says, she looked past. So it's kind of like I think you're getting all these characters to converge around this one point of Neville, doing this ritual. So maybe you do need the multiple point of views, but I think they definitely need to be. I would just research a little bit, managing that, because I feel like there's a little bit of just prose level mechanics that you might want to just dive into to make that really function. Is he? Neville couldn't finish his sentence. He can't be. So they both run out together, mother and daughter. Okay.
The mother saw the daughter out there.
And then they both ran out. Okay. They both stopped. Okay. So then we're kind of in this blended point of view, which is always a bit tricky because we're at Magneta's. So we're in Magneta's head here because she's feeling his fit.
Magenta?
It's Magneta.
Y'all, this is what I gotta live with.
See my life.
Magneta.
It's Magneta now. Too late. She should just change it. I'm just gonna find replace on that. Magneta. Then we'll be right. Then who's right, Danielle? I am.
It's
always.
just like some weird cross-dressing X-Men fan fiction.
Hello, it's Magneta. Magneto's sister. All right.
Oh man.
Okay, so then we're in both point of views, which is another. Neville couldn't finish. Yes, then it was still worms. This is M's point of view. I'm just gonna say M because it hurts my feelings. M's POV.
Oh.
And then, until then we need to carry him back. Yeah, because then she could not reach her brother, so we're in, now we're in N's POV. Her brother. So these are little breaks in POV that are just gonna like make your reader feel kind of lost. And I think in terms of priority, so I'm gonna jump to like overall notes. I think we really need to, so first I like the concept and the world a lot. So good, oops. I'm just kidding.
I'm innocent.
Yeah, right. I like the concept and the world. I think the magic of like lightning and necro is awesome. So let me not,
and I like the I totally forgot what I was just gonna say.
The voice of the narrator and character.
Oh, the foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing a lot. Things to improve. Just read a bunch of stuff in Omniscient POV.
Decide whether you actually want to do that.
Decide whether it's needed. Don't feel like it's working just yet. There's a lot of writing books on that too. Like, there's Beth's on writing, and there's like a lot of things. I think this sentence level stuff / parentheses / branching needs a little trim.
Yeah, although it got a little bit better.
Yeah, it improved, I think, in the beginning. But we also kind of like zoomed out a little bit, so we weren't like super looking for it as much. Because it's free edit. So and then the next thing, what was it? Oh, just some dialogue and voice. I also, we jump POVs, but none of them sound that different from each other. They are in a family, so maybe it's okay, but we get a similar experience in each character's head. Also the narrator, if you are going to voice him, he needs to he fades, about halfway into this. In the beginning, there's a narrator, and he's really talking to us, and he's really like popping in a bunch of parentheticals, and he's really present as a storyteller. But eventually, he kind of just fades into the back, and it becomes like a scene-by-scene, play-by-play, which I think is more effective. So to some degree, I probably think you could lose the narrator and kind of that fairy tale intro. But again, that would be your choice. I think that's just a choice you need to make to either go one way or the other. Because I don't know, did you get that sense too? I feel like that narrator really just faded into the background, and we don't really hear from him again as like this, like, because in the beginning it's like,
it's very distant.
Nestled at the end of a cobblestone road, and it's like this hyper distant narrator.
Yeah, and
the
then
family, and then Riven, and then eventually we're down here where it's just like
just switching close third person.
Magneta sat in the chair that was placed beside the bed. Nettles, it's like very play-by-play. Several days passed before he dared enter sunrooms again to visit. And she walked up to him. It looked like he was sleeping. This is like very close third. The afternoon sun shining even brighter. I mean, that kind of distant narrator is vanished. So I would just kind of choose which one you want to do. But great job. I think this is a really awesome story. I love the magic. I love the setup. I think there's a really conflict-driven setup. So I think just in those two things alone, I think you have a really great story here. And I think a lot of it at least the stuff that I'm seeing is kind of that prose level. I mean, which makes total sense as a first draft. I mean, you kind of just got your concept out really quickly, and as you go about your second draft, I would really try to manage that omniscient POV better, or just decide how you want to approach it. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's your story. You can kind of choose what you want to do, but I think it just needs another look, and just going through and doing that kind of sentence level precision work. But yeah, overall great work. I think point of view, because the narrator is part of the point of view. I think point of view in its most general sense, narrator, third person omniscient, those things I think you really want to evaluate in your next draft.
Mm-hmm.
Great job.
Woo. Well done.
All right, I'm gonna read the other one. You go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am insomniac, so I'm an insomniac, so there's that. Let me catch up on chat before I dive in. Love the cast, the color wheel. I think it looks so. If it's the concept I'm assuming is the right feel, clean is what I'm aiming for. It looks professional. It's a good job. Unfortunately, people do judge books by their covers. They do indeed. But they also judge books by their content. So be sure to get an editor. It doesn't have to be me. But get someone to read your work objectively. Because just as much as they judge books by their covers, they judge them by their first 3 pages. There's that writing tip somewhere in the tips that talks about. Let's see if I can do a tip roulette here. Nope. Oh well, I tried. But there's that writing tip that says, hey, look, that's how this editor, this very, very well-known editor, went to Barnes & Noble's and just I'll hire Fox deal. Just the tip, indeed. Just the writing tip. Yeah, pretty much. I'm gonna jump into the normal headphones here because they are a little bit easier to hear, from what I understand. A little clearer, easier to hear. Okay, great. But yeah, he would watch people in Barnes and Nobles, and sometimes they'd take the book, obviously judging it by its cover, read the first 3 pages, and they'd either do one or two things: take it to the front of the store and buy it, or they'd put it right back. So remember, those first 3 pages matter. Something I probably should work on even more in my novel, though I've eyeballed those damn pages so many times. Anyways, we're on the Malfoy Manor. I think this is a Draco is a girl in this fan fiction. So I love fan fiction. I think fan fiction is fantastic. I think it's one of the great opportunities to practice some of the fundamentals of your writing without having to reinvent the wheel and think of your own world and think of your own rules and think of your own everything. Good night. You too. Fiction is great, but I don't know. Did I have a butt in there? I hope not. I think a lot of people really rag on fan fiction. I think it's a really great place to work. I think it's awesome. I was actually considering doing a fan fiction at some point. Maybe it's because of that I write, I can look up smut of my own characters. Man, big dreams, guys. Big dreams. Rule 34 is a thing. Anyways. All right. I double spaced it because single space just hurts my eyes. Maybe that's like a bad excuse, but I'm just gonna also make this a little bigger. 12 font. There we go. Ah, isn't that so much easier to read, guys and gals? Wonderful. Um, okay. Great. We have a scene summary. I'm imagining this is for the writer. Maybe it's for the reader. I don't know. The day a certain Slytherin was rejected the mark, she was given a blessing in disguise. So it is really a retelling because I think Malfoy accepted the dark mark. Anyways, Malfoy Manor hadn't always been a place of horror. Quite the opposite, because for the longest time the entire property was nothing but a large, empty building, long abandoned by the older Malfoy, by older Malfoys, by the older Malfoys who left it and overgrown who decided to stay to rot. So I think this is really solid. I think there's just a few kind of clunky sentence level things. Husky, how's it going? Wait, did I tune at the most awkward time? Oh no! What up, Husky? How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Then the message, those writers, and tell him it's me, and say, "That's out of character. How dare you!" That tuned at the most awkward time. No, it's just me. You can ignore me safely. This is Husky's work, so let's all give him a big clap. Thank you for sharing it. I know that's a very brave thing to do, and it's always stressful. But I'm excited to read it. Yeah, Malfoy Manor hadn't always been a place of horror. Quite the opposite, because for the longest time, the entire property was nothing but a large, empty building, long abandoned by the older Malfoys who left it in an overgrown country estate to rot. I think we kind of get this. This is kind of verbal doubling a little bit. Maybe it could even be moved up here. It was nothing but a large building thing. Left to rot. I think that's a better left to rot by the older. Maybe the older. I think that's a bit passive voice, so I'm actually going to undo that. Oops. Wow, I can't do this. Why? I'm going to say that the previous, left to rot. So I think left to rot is a better turn of phrase, but I think that this is kind of restating. Anyways, it sat through several generations of nothingness, long reclaimed by nature before a certainly newlywed couple, Lucius Malfoy and his wife, Narcissa, laid their eyes. Oh, I'm throwing things everywhere now. Ugh, where'd it go? I'll get it later. Long reclaimed by nature. So I don't know. So again, this is nitpicking, and I'm always nitpicking in the first few paragraphs. This is passive voice, and it's like it's an insertion. It's kind of like a parenthetical passive voice. So I think that can probably be removed and moved. So I think it's a great thing. This is a passive voice parenthetical. Why not make this another sentence? I find one thing with a lot of writers is that they perhaps get the sense they need to have really long, drawn out, connected, complex sentences, and while that's really good, sometimes just cutting the sentence, making it simple, sat through several generations of nothing's period. Nature reclaimed its once, extravagant grounds, period. And then you can do that Harry Potter. So Harry Potter has that very much, her style of writing is, the then one day, you can mimic kind of what JK's devices are. Then one day, Lucius Malfoy and his wife Narcissa laid their eyes on it. Because she kind of has that narrator voice coming in pretty regularly. Having people do fan work of your own work or fan art. Listen, there's 80 pages. Maybe just look at the first page. Fan is probably the coolest thing because most betters can't draw. So you can see your own characters alive. That's pretty awesome. That would be pretty cool. I've tried drawing my own character. Works as concept art. Nice. On a regular Sunday morning, the couple found themselves staring in wonder towards the large manor from beyond the large gate that stood in their way. It was kept shut with a large rusted padlock and a heavy chain. So I think you're doing a great job setting the scene. I think you're spending that time. That was the feedback I think we gave in your previous draft. Is you're spending the time to kind of build this world, and to zoom in a little bit. On the regular Sunday morning, the couple found themselves staring in wonder towards a large manor from beyond, from beyond, um, beyond the other side of, on the far side of a large gate. We cannot know. Maybe we'll get somewhere wrought iron. Maybe we don't need large. Maybe it's like picking the detail. Large is a very generalized detail, and this is nitpicking, but this is the first few paragraphs of your story. So I'd rather zoom in really deep here, and then have a more cursory read. We'll probably go faster in the later pages. But I kind of want to zoom in and say, okay, we got to pick. Large is a good detail, but it's a general detail. Is the tall? Is it small? Ornate is something, ornate wrought iron, those types of things can give a little more life. So picking your details really well. But I do think just in general, Husky, that your prose has developed a lot. We're having a little bit of setup before we jump into the scene. We're kind of getting to know these characters a little bit. I think this is a really great step in the right direction. I feel like, your writing has evolved a lot since I've last read it, which was a couple of months ago even, which is awesome. Like, it's already moving beyond where it was a couple of months ago, which is fantastic. It was kept shut with a large rusted padlock and a heavy chain that weaved in and out of the bars of the gate. All this would have been enough to turn away most muggles. Alas, the Malfoys weren't muggles. Great! Again, you're really channeling J.K. Rowling's voice here. I think you must have maybe read the books right before you, or read the books, which is exactly what fan fiction I think is so great at making us writers do. It makes us practice different voices. It makes us practice another writer's voice. And I think there's nothing better you can do to develop your own voice than to mirror someone else's. I think I had some reading here and there helped me improve. I absolutely agree. And I think the more you read, the better. So remember, pick those books off the shelves. Guys like Brandon Sanderson are really great fantasy. More adult themed fantasy, because Harry Potter, has that fairy tale tone, which is geared towards a middle grade audience, which is fine. But if that's the audience you want to eventually write your own fiction for, or if you say, hey, I just want to continue to write in fan fiction, that works as well. Depends on your goals as a writer. But if you say, hey, I want to stay in middle grade and read more of those books, Brandon Mull is a really great middle grade writer. He wrote the Candy Store Wars, I think, which I read. I thought it was great. He wrote Fablehaven. He wrote Fablehaven. So if you say, hey, I want to stay in middle grade, there's a lot of stuff you can read in middle grade. If you say, hey, I want to have more books in a different genre, obviously go in that direction. So yeah, but I think it's definitely improved. Fablehaven is a good series if you like that middle grade genre, and I think it's awesome. The two looked around, checking for any muggles whose very presence could spell trouble for them. I like that little play on words. Spell trouble, spell, I guess they're magical spells. Okay, I'm done. And the wizarding community for what they were about to do. I think we kind of know the trouble, and this is kind of going into like nitpicky, but I feel like your prose has improved so much. I want to focus on it a little bit. Whose very presence could spell trouble. Maybe we give an example. They wanted nothing less than to be pulled in front of a ministry magic tribunal for, breaking the statute. Secrecy while they were house hunting, whatever. And you can kind of, make silly. That's a silly example. Obviously, you could write a better sentence with more time, but just kind of throwing it in there. With a curt nod from Lucius, and as pointed a wand toward the lock, a thin white wisp zipped from the tip of her wand. It flew inside the keyhole. I'm not going to zoom too in. I could obviously, I always nitpick. A small mechanism inside the device clicked before the chains. What's great is you can always just do an and. And the before, whenever, and this is like that cause and effect ordering I was actually talking about with Erica Drayton's writing a little bit earlier, was, if something happens, Jeff swung his fist and punched, the bad guy in the chin. We kind of know he swung his fist before we punched, just in the way it's ordered in the sentence. So remember, you don't have to have those those clarifiers like before, because it's an extra longer word and it clarifies and it kind of simple. Like, good night, novelist. Thanks for hanging out. So good to see you, and always nice to have you come out. Boss is just about down. His non-consecutive, just about down. This is his non-consecutive 24-hour stream. Yeah, I'm about to go to bed in about t-minus like 20 minutes, so not even, maybe even 15 minutes. But I wanted to give this a little read, and I know Husky was like, "Oh, don't read much, So I wanted to at least give it a look. But if you do, Husky, you are the first in line. So if you do want me to devote more time to this and really dig deep, let me know. But I know you asked me not to read too much of it, so that's why I'm kind of doing kind of a shorter bit toward the end of the night. But if you say, "Hey Jeff, I want you to just really go through and delve into more detail," we can talk. A soft spring wind coursed down. Great. I mean, I feel like this is such a night and day. I'm really impressed. I think you've really improved. I think your writing has developed a lot since I last read it. I think this is really impressive. Um, um, that's just a pocket around. Yeah. Okay. So just having the cause, earlier in the sentence as the effect, we can imply the before. Do I have a page lock on? Is that why it's being weird? I don't know. A soft spring wind coursed down the path. I think this could be a new paragraph. This is another thing to think about as you start writing and as you are doing a lot of reading, is where and why do writers break up their paragraphs? Something at the sentence level. I butcher the sentence when it happens. It happens, Miyak. I get it. Never even heard of this cause and effect topic until now. Well, if you want some great reading, let me find this thing for you. Yep. Yep. This is it right here. Ugh, why is my thing being so glitchy? Oh. Hold on, I gotta verify my freaking token from my chatbot before I can paste the link in.
Can you not glitch phone or just take me to... Gosh, so shitty. There you go. The problem with too many effects before causes, you're essentially asking the reader to read backwards and forwards. Yep. Read a sentence with effect B, then sentence cause A, and you're like, wait, need to go back. Yeah, I don't think you're breaking that rule too much, but I think one thing that you could do here is just trust that it's happening. And this is a very minor note, so honestly, this is super, super small. Flowers must grow in the path and the weeds, and this is paragraphy, so we're getting into like, this is another action after stepping inside, which is observing the scene. So another paragraph. And yeah, so like paragraphy is pretty important on the prose level. Helpful. Okay. So the veil, so we're kind of getting your notes here, I think. They enjoyed crafting every bit. They learned an even magic. Restoring the manners is not a two-person job. None of them worked as a team. Talking to the curse breaker and discussing ways to tackle the ancient magic that kept the old manor standing while assist Malfoy did the planning and pondering. So, it looks like you're kind of like, which is I think a smart move, which is writing kind of piecemeal. Like when you're inspired, write a chunk. Eventually when you go to your second draft, you'll want to go back and fill all this in. That's okay. In the nursery, large right corner. I think this is. I'll kind of go to the bottom of this page, maybe. The nursery, large right room. Applying layer of paint to whatever spot wasn't blue. Borch listened to the muffled conversations about the floor separating the two rooms was thick. The floor separating the two rooms was thick. Sorry, I'm just doing grammar edits. There's not too much I can. And it's hard to make out. Everything is said. I already tried that. There were sounds. Wait. Where are we? There's good to hear the recipient, but couldn't. So here it's a little hard to discern who. It's a little hard to discern who she's talking to. Especially with kind of the chunks missing. Recipient is also maybe the reply. Maybe you could even go as far as like Lucius's. God, how do you spell Lucius? That's luscious. Lucius's reply. Wow, man, spelling. You can tell once I start getting tired. Once it gets late. Once it's after 1:30, my spelling goes right out the door. Yeah. 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 99.999% of your writing should be A, B, C. Logical, forward movement, clarity. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Like 0.1, 0.01% is maybe when you would try something different. 1 second. Let me see if did Fox bring it? Yeah, she got it. Yeah, it could be a rhyme. It could be a meter. Yeah, you can use it as a meter. Do you want variation? Have a nice. You could do a rhyme meter. Fine, you know what? You're tired. All right. Narcissa smiled and shook her head. Okay. You try solving this. 14 of you. You're all hired. Get this done or enter. I will make certain that your business crashes and burns in silence. And left for a drink. Okay, so like obviously like these are rough scenes, so I might not go too much further. These are in dev scenes. So hard to gauge your goal. But the prose seems to be working a lot smoother overall. Yeah, I like it. One thing I would think about is like what's the conflict? I think so far, at least from what I've observed from these kind of smaller scenes, what I've observed from these smaller scenes is the absence of a bigger, if I could spell, a bigger goal. Besides besides the fixer upper, fixer fixer upper only is fine, but you'll need to do all the quaint stuff like TBS or like those TV shows to make it narrative really interesting, like i.e. devices like the shocking before, or the complications of fixing, or the big reveal at the end, those types of things. Like if you're gonna say, hey, I don't want there to be this big problem or this big conflict, and I just want them working on the house, go watch some of those house fixer upper shows and say, okay, what devices are they using? How are these house fixer upper shows making their TV shows interesting without having all this hoopla? um you know otherwise, ask, why they need a house now. Is there some threat that they'll need a home, slash threshold type defenses for? Those would be the questions I'm asking. And pretty much what I was just saying, Husky, in case you were out for a second, was these small scenes, the one thing, at least from my very cursory, and obviously it's hard to tell because these are kind of in fragments so far, but kind of the thing that I am looking for is what's the big story? What's the narrative arc? How does it develop? Where does it go? And is there a big threat? Is there a big goal that they have? Maybe they want to build something or have this like kind of big vision that they're trying to accomplish. If you do want to keep it more of like almost like the fixer upper shows on TV, you'll probably want to bring some of those devices that they use in those shows to bear to make this narratively compelling. I think, I think you have a lot here. So I think this is a really awesome revision. This is in essence a first draft, a new first draft of kind of what you're trying to accomplish with this fan fiction, and I think it's a very much stronger first draft, Husky. So, my kind of my 2 cents would be, hey, full steam ahead. This is really in a much stronger place. And keep reading. Keep, if you like middle grade, read books. I'll write it in. I'll write them in here. Fablehaven, Candy, Shop Wars. What else? Top middle grade books. See if I've read any of these. I mean, The Hobbit is middle grade. I don't know. Oh man, I might even read that. I love books about candy. So I mean, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is my favorite freaking book of all time. So Yeah, I'll note these books. But yeah, if you like, actually, this whole chapter was intended to set the scene as nice and pretty, but following the introduction was supposed to be a sprinkle of dark stuff. Well, I think that's a really great. So it's great to hear your goals. One thing that you always generally want is from page one. So even if you have this kind of nice introduction, from page one you want to hint, from like as early as possible that there is something coming. Maybe we don't see it right now. Maybe we don't know what this darkness is, but that something's off or something's wrong. And you kind of want to start telegraphing that as early as possible, that something isn't right with the world. Stories, in their most general structures, start off from a broken place. Something is broken and wrong with the world, and whether that's a dark force that's kind of manifesting itself or something else. Hinting at that broken place from the first page. Even if it's like it'll add a sense of irony, I think, to this very kind of utopian, fixer-upper house plot moment you have, where maybe there is something going on, and maybe they're working on this house to ignore the news. They're trying to get away. They're like, you know what? There's a lot of really bad stuff going on in the world right now. Let's just do this house. But as much as they are working on this house, more news comes in, and they're trying to like have this nice honeymoon together, but more bad news is coming in. They're trying to just enjoy each other's company, but more bad news is coming in. You see that a lot in how J.K. Rowling even managed the wedding between, or a good example is the Quidditch World Cup. I think that's in the fourth or fifth book, the Quidditch World Cup, where there is this big celebration, but there's a dark mark in the middle of it, like something really bad. I think that's the fourth book. Something's going wrong, and somebody's gone missing, and before that we had the sinister, I think we went to like the old guy in the house, and he's like, he sees like baby Voldemort. So like, in that book they start with the dark. You almost always want to start with the risk in the dark if you can. And obviously, or at least hint that it's coming soon. Because you have to have that drama. And then what happens is when we get to the Quidditch World Cup, after seeing baby Voldemort murder this old guy, we know that even as fun and great as the Quidditch World Cup is, there is something really dark and bad coming, and it's going to start at that World Cup. And we're kind of reading the Quidditch World Cup, enjoying it, but also wondering when the sword is going to fall. So those would be things I would really think about. Anyways, it's 1:40. I kind of went longer on this edit than I even thought I would, but there were two fantastic stories. I think really great job to both of the writers, and I hope that these kind of these thoughts and these edits help you develop your work and have even stronger second and third drafts. So great job, everybody. I wish you all the very, very best. And so it's all foreshadowing. Could be set, and it should be set in as early as possible. Yeah, I think just go. One recommendation I would give you before I sign off, Husky, is read the first 5 pages of 10 books this week. Easy, right? Read the first. Maybe I'll do that too, because it's always a great piece of advice. You always got to take your. One thing they always tell people in life is to take your own advice, and you will find that your life improves dramatically. The advice you give to other people, take yourself. So maybe. So just do that. Read the first 5 pages of 10 books, and then think about like published books, published authors. And think about when the risk or when the hint of the main plot is coming in, and ask why they chose that, maybe. Like, why are they doing it this way? Food for thought. And then what is making you want to read more if you do? And why do you not want to read more in some books? Like, in some of them you'll be like, okay, cool, what I want to read the next 5 pages. And in some of them you'll be like, I'm good. I'm glad I only had to read 5 pages, and kind of ask why. Really evaluate your responses. And the next time you're on stream, let's talk about it. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good one. I'll see you all probably tomorrow. I'll be on in the morning, or like sort of not really, but like in the early afternoon. I'll be probably starting to stream around like 1 or 2. So I'll see you all then. Take care.